here on the island thinking about being a homesteader. What the homestead? I can't have chickens. Yeah, it's against city ordinances. I can't have ducks. Same thing. Can't have sheep. Can't have goats. Can't have a cow. But I can have these guys. Yeah, that's my livestock. Let me tell you what's going on with them, where I got them from, how I got them, and what I'm going to do with them. The homestead's going on. Let's get out of here. Okay, my friends, if you watched the last video, and I'd like to appreciate the 6 of you who did, we went to Ashe County, we went to West Jefferson, and we went in this place called the Honey Hole. And in the Honey Hole, they had all kinds of honey stuff because they raised bees, and they were selling their honey wares. And they had all types of infused honeys, including bourbon honey. And I was like, I've got to get some bourbon honey. So I reached down underneath the cabinet and I pulled one out, and I took a peek at the back there, and it was vanilla. What? Vanilla bean? Come on, put that back. Get the right one. I reached over another one and I found it. And this inspired me. I thought, if these people could raise bees, I could raise bees too, right? So Kim got me a present. It was a bee package box, and it didn't come assembled, so I had to assemble it myself. So, I got out the screwdriver and I started putting the box together because I thought, I'm going to get some bees. I'm going to keep them in the backyard. I can't have chickens, right? I can't have goats, but I can have bees. So I thought, I'm going to put this box in the backyard. I'm going to fill it with bees, and in like 2 weeks, I'm going to have so much honey, I'll start my own honey hole down here, on the coast, because you need coastal honeybees. Make probably the best honey. So, not knowing what I'm doing, I got out all the pieces, which came with little to no instructions. And even if they did come with instructions, I wasn't going to read them. I guess it did have some instructions there, but again, didn't read them. But I just figured, get some nails and just nail it together. And what could go wrong? So I put the long skinny one and I attached it to the bigger ones, and I nailed it in there, and I flipped it over and I nailed the other side. And then I got they came with these plastic boards, so they're all coated with wax, and sort of like little honeycomb built into it. And I thought, this is where my bees are going to put up their honey when I put this in the box. So I just grabbed the next piece. They all looked the same to me, and I nailed it together. And it was just like looking at it, and I'm like, this seems pretty wonky. Like, this doesn't seem right. And then I realized that there were different size like pieces of wood, and this definitely was not the right one. So I went back to the drawing board and I started taking the pieces out of the box and separating them, realizing some of these are bigger and some of these are smaller. So lesson learned, kids. If you get yourself a box of to build a honey box, you get a kit to build a honey box, realize there are different sizes of wood. So I did it again. This time I put the big one on the big side, the little one on the little side, and when I slipped the little plastic mat into the frame and put the top on, it fit snug and perfect, and I was so very happy. So I got a 10 frame box. I guess you can get them in different sizes, like 8 frame, 10 frame box, but this is your standard 10 frame box. And I made all the frames, and here's the box, and it came with a top and a bottom and a lid, a cover in the kit. And so I just put all the little frames in there, and they just fit perfect. And I thought, this is great. All I got to do is get some bees, and we are good to go. So what I decided to do was order some bees online. Now, you can order packages of bees, which I guess is they just give you a box, and there's bees, and you put the box of bees in your box, and everybody's happy. But it didn't seem like the best idea. And just so you know, I painted the outside of this box, and it did have a wax coat on it, but I just wanted to give it some more protection from the elements, so I figured I'd just give a nice light coat of paint. And you can see, as I'm painting here, it doesn't really want to stick. It's starting to bead up, so this did take several coats, but I think it looks good. I'm going to put it out in the yard. This is the base where I'm going to put it. I got some cinder blocks and just a pallet there. I'm going to strap it down so the whole thing stays together. And also for the bees, I thought they would want some water. So I found an old kind of bird feeder bowl that had some rocks in it and stuff, and it was kind of dirty. So I just cleaned that out, and I'm going to leave that in that jar behind it. You see that mason jar? I'll fill that with water, put it on top so it consistently has water for the bees, and the rocks are so they don't drown in the water, and they can get in and out of it. So I set that up in the yard too. Now I needed to go get my bees. As I was saying, I was going to buy either a package, but I didn't like that idea. The other option was a nuke, and it was a little bit more, is that how you say it? N-U-C. I think it's pronounced nuke. Anyway, it's pronounced nuke now. I thought I'd get a nuke of bees. And what they do with the nuke of bees is they give you the bees and they put them in the box for you. So I went to, what is Bridger's Bees in Wilmington, and I met with Ryan, and I gave him my box. And what he did was he took 5 of my frames, and he put in 5 of his frames that already had the bees making, I guess, brood and maybe storing honey in there. I don't really know, quite sure what the bees were doing in there, but they were already doing it on 5 frames. So he took out 5 of my new frames, kept them for himself, and put in 5 of his previously filled frames with the bees and a queen. And then he strapped it all together and he put it in my truck, and I drove it home. And so the bees are in the box. It's taped up on the bottom. You can see the blue tape, so the bees can't get out. And of course, we strapped it down so the top and the bottom and everything would be sealed together. Put it in, very kind of him to do this. And this wasn't really that expensive considering I got all these bees, and I'm going to have honey in like 2 weeks, right? So I'm all excited about that. As I found out later, it does take longer than 2 weeks to get honey. It takes a lot longer. So there's a lot more things I needed to learn. I got a box of Italian bees. I learned that there are many different types of bees, and that I realized that all the bees that are going to come out of here are girls. So I named the queen Charlotte for Queen Charlotte, and all her girls I didn't name because there are going to be thousands of them. Now, I thought since they were just getting set up, I would feed them. So I made a 1-to-1 sugar syrup. So I put in a cup of water, boiled that up, and then once the water was all boiled up and hot and ready to go, I poured it into my sugar, which was also equal to 1 cup, so it was 1-to-1. And I just stirred that hot water in there, and it melted all the sugar and made this great syrup. I also bought a top feeder, which I thought was a good idea because I wanted to keep the feed inside the box. There are different ways you can do it. You can feed them sort of outside the box, and I've heard that's bad because the beehive is supposed to be a secret. Shh! Don't let any other bees know. So this is my bee box, top feeder, and I also painted it. And the idea is you put the syrup in the top of that box after the paint dries, and you put this box on top of the other box, and everybody's happy because the bees can just go up in this wire mesh, and they can drink the syrup, and then they can still go out, and it's kind of early in the spring here, so I thought I'm going to have to get in there to put this top feeder on. So here's some of the other equipment I got. I got a hat, I got some gloves, and I got the smoker. It came with these little ridiculous little pellets, which I had no idea how to use because, again, no instructions, and also I wouldn't have read them if they had them anyway. But they didn't have instructions. So I thought this thing was just going to light up. Like it would take like 1 pellet and I'd smoke for days, but that's not really the case. I couldn't even get the stupid pellet to light. So I did the next best thing. I got some newspaper. I shoved some newspaper in there, and that lit, and I thought it would light the smoker on, and billows and billows of smoke would come out and make my life so easy. But that didn't really happen. It burnt. It got hot. I burnt my fingers, and then the little bit of smoke that came out was like almost irrelevant. Also, didn't have the top. Push the top down. There you go. A little bit of smoke that came out, but it was good enough. Luckily, my bees are very docile, and I don't really have to overly smoke them. So I went down. I got a new kind of strap that was a little bit easier to get on and off, just a bungee cord strap. Take off the big clunky metal strap that's holding it all together. Opened it up, took the tape off the front of the box so the bees can get out, right? And then I'm going to put the top feeder on top. That's my goal here. And then they're going to be happy bees, and that's what I'm looking for. So, like I said, they're in there, 5 frames. 5 of the other frames are still in there, so 10 frames altogether. Trying to get my smoker to go again. Still can't get it to go. But I did learn another secret later on, which was to get smoke pellets. And I actually like to smoke fish. I have a smoker, and I like to make smoked fish dip. So I took some of the pellets that I use for my smoker, and I put them in there. That kind of worked. Here they are. Here's some pellets. Hickory blend. I mean, bees love hickory blend, right? So I thought I was going to throw a handful of these in there, and that's going to smoke. And it takes longer to catch on fire, but once it goes, it's pretty good. Not much smoke coming out still, but it's good. It's going to be good enough. So I'm smoking the top here. A couple of the bees are kind of around it. Kind of opened it up, throw a little smoke in there. I'm like over smoking. I'm like, I don't know how much smoke. Actually, I kind of found that I can almost go in there if I'm not pulling out the frames, and I don't even have to smoke them. They're pretty cool. They're pretty chill. I've only been stung once, and it wasn't even when I was opening it. Anyway, get the top off, and I put the That's the feeder right there. I put the food, the syrup on one side there, and they can come up inside that little wire mesh there and eat it. So I'm going to close this whole thing back up and see how it goes. So they're going to have food to eat. They're going to be able to get in and out their little hole down there, and they got plenty of smoke to keep them chill. The time I got bit, I'm just going to mention, it was on my forum. I was just sitting there watching them come in and out of the hole. And I guess one of them thought, like, who's this guy trying to come in and out of the hole? Let me tell you what happened with this feeder. After I did put it back in there, I came back and I checked it because I was checking the frames. You can see the 5 frames there in the middle. Those obviously are old ones that have the stuff on them. I thought I would check one of the side frames to see if they had gotten out there yet. And at this point, they were looking at it, but they hadn't put anything on it yet. So I thought I got a little ways to go before I need to expand my beehive. And like I said, obviously it's going to take more than 2 weeks to make honey. Put the whole thing back together. But the problem was the feeder, the wire mesh, they could get through it. And a bunch of them like threw it on the side and they drowned. I look in there, there's probably about 10 bees in there floating around. I mean, what the Homestead?